So we're just going to jump back right in. Just before we go over what we're going to go through today, I did want to talk about the reason that first vices and precinct chairs are put together today. So that was very intentional. First vice, as part of your responsibility, is making sure the precincts are doing what they need to be doing and kind of managing all of the political goals that precincts are coming up with. So you guys actually have a really close relationship in the counties. So that's why we put you guys together. There are some differences, but there are a lot of shared responsibilities between the two groups. So we're going to just go through kind of what happens after a precinct is organized. What does that mean? How can you strategize for different groups of voters in different districts and precincts? And then how can you build inclusive volunteer teams, some organizing strategies, and then we'll wrap it up from there. So just to go through, we all know, I think it takes about 5 active Democrats to make sure your precinct is organized, right? And I think everyone here is on top of that. They're doing great. Their precinct chairs are making sure they've got their 5 people and they've got their more than 5 people so that they can stay on top of it and keep growing. So that's your baseline organized precinct. And then what does it mean to be a precinct chair? Like what are you supposed to do beyond get your 5 people? Like, is that all? I know that Julia has told the story of when her precinct, they had their 5 people, they put their names on a piece of paper, they met once a year, and that's all they did. And I think there are many precincts in the state that can still do that today. So what are you supposed to be doing? So the POO has tons of responsibilities listed out. I think there are about 10 responsibilities, but truly your main 2 goals are establishing reasonable political goals and organizing and executing a voter organizing plan. So those goals need to be specific ones, need to be measurable, need to be SMART goals. But and then first vices, one of your big responsibilities out of your list of about 10 that pop up in the POO is coordinating, serving as a coordinator for all precinct and party organizing efforts. So that's working directly with the precinct chairs and helping them figure out how do they actually execute this voter execution plan, voter organizing plan. How do they do that? And you have more access to resources at the county level. And so but the precinct chairs know more about their individual precincts. So it's all about working together, creating those SMART goals, and so that we can be as successful as possible as a party. So 3 big things. Once you hit your 5 people in your precinct, these are 3 huge things that you are super important. So this 5+, the 5 is that baseline we talked about earlier. The plus, that's that growth mindset. 5 people is great, you're organized, amazing, but what comes next? So that plus is always growing, reaching out to new Democrats in your area, knowing your neighbors, and if someone is super excited about the Democratic Party or issues and candidates coming up, then inviting them to precinct meetings, getting them more involved. And this also serves at the county level as well. And then this Google Map icon in the middle, that's knowing your area. That's getting a map and walking your precinct. Obviously not walking your county if you're a first vice, that does not sound fun. And it's just kind of impossible, but it's knowing your area and talking to your precinct chairs, because they can walk their precincts. So if you have a question or something, you can use your resources, use each other and have those conversations. And then this last one, it's a little party icon. So it's just more about your attitude, because if you're glum and you sound boring, no one wants to come to those meetings. It doesn't sound fun. But if you're super excited and you make it sound fun, then more people are going to be willing to show up and put in the hard work, because it is hard work. And a lot of times you got to have a lot of grit to get through it. But if you're in it with your friends and you're in it with a good group of people and this great Democratic family and you have a great party mindset, then it's going to be then it's great, and more people will want to join you at that point. So this number, 657,712. That number is the number of Democrats that did not vote in the 2020 election in North Carolina. So I'm just going to kind of let that number sit there a little bit. This slide is not about calling people out. This slide is not about shaming people at all, but this is the number, and this is the data that Emily and the party have pulled, and it's important to recognize where we're starting from at this point. As a party, we had record turnout in the last election. Republicans had great turnout too, which is super exciting. It means that Americans are getting involved in the political process. They're making their voices heard. That is great. But how do we reach out to this 657,000 plus people? How can we communicate with them? Because you break it down by county, and that's about 56,000 Democrats in Wake County that didn't vote. That's 95,000 Democrats in Mecklenburg that didn't vote. And this is not to call those two counties out. Every county had tons of Democrats that did not vote. And it's not about shaming them, but it's about recognizing where we're starting from so that we can move forward and be informed about what's going on and how we should strategize and go forward. So this number, it's all from data. Vote Builder is great. You can find this number. It'll be a little bit different when you pull it in Vote Builder just because of people who've since moved out of the state, cleaning of the data and voter purging as well, and just some new registrants too. But it's all in Vote Builder. You can pull these lists, you can find those people. So that's like, what do you do with that big number on that last slide? You can find your people. If you're a precinct here, you can sort and look for people who did not vote in your precinct who are registered Democrats, and you can find them and you can have conversations with them. It's not about calling them out. That's not the point of this. The point is to make those connections and figure out maybe why they didn't vote, or just get to know them so that you can have a conversation and help them maybe vote next time, because there will always be a next time in the political process. That's what's great about it. When you pull this number is made up of all these different categories. So this is how we traditionally will break it up into these about 9 categories. The new voters is kind of separate. But we in this meeting, we're all probably in this I category. We're very strongly progressive on this scale up at the top. And we vote all the time, which is the scale on vertical axis. So we're all over in this I category. We're great Democrats. But over in this G category, those are very strongly conservative individuals who also vote all the time. They're our alter egos, basically. They're always showing up. They're probably, and they have they're super strong conservative. So we can't really touch them that much. But what happens in this middle category, this persuadable category? What about these H's? Like, they vote all the time, but where are they kind of going? How can we talk to them? Maybe how can we convince them that the Democratic Party is the one that they most align with? And then you have this F and C category. How do we get them to vote more? They're strongly progressive, but how do we get them to the polls all the time? How do we turn them into I's? How do we move them along this spectrum? So that's what this is. And there's different scores that you can pull this all in Vote Builder. And if you're curious about that, Emily is a great resource for that. And we have other trainings that you can hop into, and we can teach you all about that if you're a big data nerd like me. So that's fun. So this is kind of leading us to a conversation about how different groups of people require different strategies. It's the same graphic, but how do you use this, sort your people, and then how do you figure out use this to create GOTV goals? How many doors are you going to knock? That is all focused on the H's, not the H's, sorry, the F's and the I's. That's getting your progressive Democrats out to the polls, pushing them to the polls, knocking a certain number of doors, a specific number that you set for yourself, because it's got to be a specific and measurable goal, and pushing them to the polls. Persuasion, that's that middle category that we talked about. They're always voting, or they're voting most of the time. And how do you persuade them? Have those longer conversations. That's not just about having a conversation 2 weeks out from election day. That's about having a conversation now and just getting to know someone so that you can know, like, have personal conversations, know what issues they care about, what is going on in their life, because then that can lead to persuadable conversations as you get to know them. And then base building, that's building up your volunteer networks. That's inviting more people to your precinct meetings, to your county meetings, finding volunteers. That's getting all your excited Democrats out, and they can, so that you can knock more doors, so that you can have more conversations with people, because you cannot do it alone. That's impossible. Here, before I go to that slide real fast, I'm just going to go through. So on Vote Builder, you can pull all of this. You can specifically go in for a specific district and look at people's a score from conservative to progressive, and then look at their score for what their likelihood of actually turning out to the polls is. You can look at that and sort it so that you can just get some numbers. Then you can go in and figure out where those people are, but the numbers are a great place to start. So this is what they're called, crosstabs. This is what one looks like. So we're just talking about what do crosstabs look like in different areas, because some of us are coming from strong Democratic strongholds. Some of us are not, as we were hearing from earlier out in Union County. Some of us absolutely are in very conservative areas. So we need to recognize that we're all coming from different places. So this is Joyce Weidel's district. It is, so we have on this top, this is a Democratic Party support score from 0. So this is strongly conservative. Over on the left to 90 plus, that's strongly progressive. So we're probably all in this 90 plus category. And then on vertical axis, we have 0, this bottom, the top of it, that is, they're probably almost certainly not going to turn out for an election. Down to 90 plus, that they're almost certainly going to be voting. So it's just a turnout score. As you go further down, more likely to be voting at the polls. So we just, for simplicity, kind of selected 60% and up likelihood of voting. So over half, they're probably going to vote, go to the polls and vote, and then sorted it into these 3 categories. So as you can see, Joyce Weidel, there's over 50,000 strongly progressive individuals who are extremely likely to turn out to the polls, whereas there's only about 17,000 strongly conservative individuals. So she really doesn't have to do much to get elected. She doesn't really need to raise that much money. Even if a conservative candidate got all of these people, the green people in the middle, it still would not come close to that 51,000. So it's a strong Democratic place, but there's always still work to be done. At this point, how does she expand out, and how can we get more Democrats involved so that they're also voting? This district is John Bradford's district. I believe this was Christy Clark's district before it was redrawn. But this district is much closer at this point. It used to be even closer. It was redrawn, so now it leans a little bit further conservative. But as you can see, it's like 26,000 to 21,000, and it can teeter either way. So both parties can't count on much. So there has to be more work done. But at this point, it's about how do you persuade more people in this middle, and how do you get more of your like 40 to 50% progressives and conservatives, depending on which side you're kind of on at that point. How do you get them out to the polls so that you can make up this difference and make it a little bit bigger at that point? And then just to have the other end of the spectrum, this is CD11 in Western North Carolina. This is Madison Cawthorn's district. Just to kind of show you what we're up against over there. Basically, this data, it's not to say that this is an impossible district, or to make everybody kind of, it's not supposed to be daunting. It just is, it's where we're starting from at this point. So there are about 200,000 strongly conservative individuals out in CD11, as opposed to about 144,000 strongly progressive, who will probably go out to the polls. So it's recognizing where we're starting from at this point. The data is not a replacement for having real conversations, but there is obviously work to be done. And so now it is important to recognize, if you're in Joyce Weidel's district, or a district that looks like that, your work is very different than someone in CD11 or more conservative districts. And it's just important to recognize that we're all part of the Democratic family, but we all have different battles to be fighting at the moment. So this is, here I can escape this at the moment, but this spreadsheet, these links are all on Socio. So you can get to these links on the website. This is the question you're probably all asking is, how do I know where my precinct is? How do I know where my county is? So you can go, this spreadsheet has all of our 2020 Democratic turnout by precinct. It is amazing. Emily did, it's great. So you can see that as we're talking about this more, Terrell County, their South Fork precinct has 100% Democratic turnout. However, they only have 9 Democrats. All 9 Democrats just happen to go to the polls, which is amazing for South Fork precinct, but it's not necessarily indicative of every other precinct is very different. They have a different battle that they're fighting. White Oak precinct, that is very similar. They have a very small number of Democrats out there. Julia has said you have to actually drive into Tennessee and then get off the highway, drive back on a dirt road basically to get to White Oak precinct. It is as far west as you can get. So White Oak and South Fork, they have, their work is basically to just start having Democratic babies and to keep growing that way. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, you have Durham, 5549 precinct. They had 37% Democratic turnout, and they have a huge number of Democrats registered. And other precincts look very similar to that. So it's just about recognizing where your precinct is and how you've been doing over time. So this other source, I won't go into it now, but it shows you what your precinct is over time so that you can actually see those trends and figure out maybe your turnout was low this year, but it actually is up from last year or the year before, which is amazing and those gains should be recognized as well. So just this data is a great place to start and is a great place to start making goals about sorting and going through what are your GOTV goals? How many doors do you want to knock, and how many of those Democrats do you want to push out to the polls so that you can extend up that turnout so that you can maybe get some of those 40 to 50% turnout scores out to the polls. Persuasion is getting those middle people and setting goals for how many of those real conversations do you want to have. And then base building obviously is building that last I category that was over in the corner that we're all in. How do we expand that and get more strongly progressive individuals out to the polls all the time? So that's just basically what we're talking about is setting those specific goals. We're going to meet X new neighbors. We're going to make this number of phone calls, knock this number of doors, and really being specific with it so that you can get to these bottom goals of increasing our registered Democrats and increasing Democratic turnout and winning more elections. You cannot do those 3 things without those top specific goals. Those specific goals lead you directly to that voter organizing plan, those reasonable political goals that the proof says you have to make in your precinct, because we want to go down to this bottom category. Before we move on, and because we have Emily here, our lovely data person, I wanted to I'll stop share and see if we have any data specific questions or questions about stuff that we have gone over. I know it's a lot of nitty gritty, that data. Some of us are not data people, and that is totally fine. Data does not replace the real conversations, and we will talk about that later, but I did want to stop and see if we had any data questions for Emily or us. Yeah, Beth, go ahead.
So I am a little bit of a data nerd too, although I can't do it. I love to be able to find it. So I'm excited to get into Vote Builder so that I can find the data. So just curious, it sounds like there's some reports already that all we have to do is click, I want this report, and we can get a report of specific data. Is that accurate? And then my other question is, can we also make our own report if it's not something that's there?
Yes. So one of the most powerful features of Vote Builder is the create a list feature, where it has all of this different criteria for all of our registered voters, from party to the scores we just talked about, to all of these demographic things. And you can, add all of those things together to create a very tailored list of folks that you might want to reach out to. So that is something that already exists. And then based on those lists, or just based on all registered voters in your Vote Builder account, you can do different kinds of reports, such as counts and crosstabs, to see, kind of like the charts that Tegan was showing earlier. You can see those kinds of things in Vote Builder as well. And we're going to be having some Vote Builder trainings later this afternoon. So if you're interested in learning some more, and definitely encourage y'all to join us for that.
I'm actually already registered to join. I'm excited
Awesome.
to do that. Thank
Cool.
you.
We'll see you this afternoon.
Okay.
And then Wendy, you can go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I am working with precinct teams in Cabarrus County to set goals, and we have the chart for voter turnout for all of our precincts for the 2020 presidential year election. And I need the municipal and midterm elections, since that's the cycle we're in. Some historic, past year midterms, past municipals, so that they can set their turnout goals based on those elections. Is that going to be available through Vote Builder, or I've been trying to chase it down through our Board of Elections?
So that's something our data team can put together and send around to folks, just like we put together the dashboard for the turnout for general election years. We can throw one together based on turnout from 2019, 2017, that kind of thing. So we can kind of see what the trajectory looks like in different areas and see what might be a good goal to shoot for. So that's
Can it be precinct by precinct? Because I'm stirring up a little bit of that competition stuff too. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I will add that to my list right now, and we can get started on that next week, and hopefully get it sent around to folks so that you all can use that as a resource to set some goals.
Great, thank you.
It's Magali. Quick question. What's the turnaround time if we need data on any particular area, or we need some sort of formulas to pull data from Vote Builder?
It really depends on what you're looking for. Most of the time, the turnaround time is as soon as you can get logged into Vote Builder yourself. Most of the things you're looking for, you can probably do yourself. But if you need help, me and a team of fellows always are here to help with anything that you need. And the best way to ask questions and get in contact with us is through our support portal. So I'm going to drop that in the chat right now. It's just ncdp.org/support. And you'll fill out a form that just says question about Vote Builder, put in your name, your county, and what your question is, and we'll be able to get to you as fast as we can.
Fortunately, we have a Vote Builder expert in our county, so that works out really well for us. But
oh yeah, also feel free to ask your county folks too. They may already have the answers.
Didn't unmute myself. Alrighty, we're gonna do, I think Sheila has one last question, and then we'll hop right back into our training.
Yes, how often is Vote Builder being updated now? Because we got a list of new voters from the Board of Elections, and I wanted to find out more information about their households before talking with them, and none of them were in Vote Builder yet.
Yeah, so Vote Builder is updated from the Board of Elections voter file about once a month. The latest update is actually being processed right now and should be live on Monday or Tuesday next week. So we're about to get a very fresh set. So those folks will, if they're not in Vote Builder right now, they'll be in next week. We also get updates not just from the Board of Elections, but we get updates from the DNC. That's where we get our really helpful scores. The DNC works with a lot of vendors that put together different kinds of models. So we have a lot of supplemental information above just someone's voter registration, as well as all of the information we all put into Vote Builder ourselves. So the information that we enter is also super, super crucial. So it's constantly being updated from us. It's periodically updated from the DNC and other vendors. And on about a monthly basis, the voter file from the Board of Elections is updated and added with new people who have registered and whatnot.
Who are you notifying when you all do the update from the Board of Elections, so that we know now the data's there?
So it is automatically posted to the Vote Builder Slack channel. So I will Actually, if you go to the ncdp.org/support, there's a form you can fill out to request access to Slack, and we can get you added to that. And it just automatically posts on the channel whenever the latest update goes live in Vote Builder.
I are already there, but so I'll take a look there then. Thanks.
Awesome.
Emily, I have a quick question about the data. Okay, I know that we get data dumps from the Board of Elections. I know that our county Board of Elections also supplies the data. My question is this: periodically, as our people are canvassing, okay, they get updated information. But one of the problems we have is if we get updated information from them and we put it in Vote Builder, with the next update from the Board of Elections, that kind of wipes out any changes we have in there. Is there any way to retain updated data on a voter?
The Board of Elections updated information does not update anything from your canvassing. If you mark somebody as moved or wrong number or anything, that suppression is tied to that person until it is manually restored by a user. So you could manually restore it if that is like an accident or something, that's an option. But the updates from the DNC and the Board of Elections don't override any of that user added data. It used to be the case that it would do that, and that has been fixed. So I understand before I started in this role about 1.5 years ago, that was a big problem, is somebody would mark, somebody wrong number, and then there would be an update from a vendor, and then you go back in and you call that wrong number again. But that is no longer the case. That wrong number tag will stay with that phone number until the end of time, until somebody goes in and restores it, which, if it's a wrong number, actually, we won't actually restore it.
What you're saying, if the county, for instance, if we update data for any of our voters in Vote Builder, it's going to retain that new information and we don't have to worry about it being wiped out, because that's been a big problem for us.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
That was needed. Okay.
That was definitely an issue a few years ago. And I've heard about it from my predecessors and other folks too. Trust me, I understand the frustration, but it's been remedied. The DNC's worked out a way to get us the updates we need without wiping out any of the user data that everybody worked so hard to collect and get updated into Vote Builder. So no longer an issue.
Good.
Glad-
Can I jump in with a question just about the historical data?
Mhm.
Is there any way to tell when someone changes? Like if they change from Republican to unaffiliated or
Yes.
Democrat or?
Oh, good. Okay.
So that's something new that we've added. So with Vote Builder, the way it is, it's really just a look at what things are currently, but we've made new activist codes that show us party switchers. And let me put in the Vote Builder guide link. There is a page, it's 20 something, that goes over different activist codes. But basically, if somebody switches, they're registered as a Democrat, in the voter file update that we have in May, we get the voter file update in June, and they've changed to unaffiliated. Before, we would have no way of knowing that. We would just say, this is what this person's registration is. Looks like they're unaffiliated. But now, going back, we started this in the January 2021 updates. They will now have an activist code that says switched Dem to unaffiliated. And
But how far back in history does that go? Is that just start in January? And
just started in January. Is the
so we can't really tell before that. Yes.
So yeah, we could go back and do it historically, but for the most part, the folks that y'all are reaching out to, if they change their registration more than 6 months ago, and we're reaching out to them based on that, it may not be super helpful. So the way you can also tell when they changed is based on the date that activist code was applied. So if it says it was applied in February, that means that when we got the voter file update for February, that's when that change occurred. Hopefully that made all sense. I'm sure that was a lot of information to dump at you, but I'll post the Vote Builder guide in here, and that's got some more information as well. So I'll drop that in the chat.
Alrighty, and with that, we're gonna go back into our training. Emily also is teaching Vote Builder stuff this afternoon. If you have Vote Builder questions, there also will be time for questions at the end. I just want to get back into this, and then if you want to stick around later, I can, and Emily, I think, can stay on for a little bit afterwards if we can have more in-depth conversations about this, because it's a great conversation. Just time is running out. So just before we move on, as I was saying earlier, data is great. All of this is amazing, but it doesn't replace real conversations. And you need to just go and make some friends, basically. That is the big ask and the big thing that we're saying, and that is part of you guys, all of your responsibilities. It's not listed in the POO, but it's pretend that it's listed in the POO. It's just about knowing who lives across the street from you, knowing who lives around you, who's in your precinct. And then if you're a first vice, having your friends as the precinct chairs and being able to reach out to them, because you have a lot of responsibilities and there are a lot of precincts in your county, but you have this great resource of the precinct chair, so you can use them, have conversations with them, also make some friends of your own, and we can all get better together at that. And I know it's something I'm working on. We all need to make friends, guys. It's great. And with that, I think Samoy is going to go through this stuff.
Yep. And so I'll be heading up this part of the presentation. One of the things that we really want you guys to focus on is being able to build a positive team culture and to be able to integrate and be inclusive with your volunteer groups, which is why we can you go take it? Which is why we are focusing on building inclusive volunteer groups. So who actually thinks that they are inclusive? Like, who wants to be inclusive? Because I know I am a very inclusive person. I know that we are all very inclusive. I love the hand raises. The hand raises are perfect. We are a very inclusive organization. And with that, that's like our strength. But I have just a couple of questions to ask if Tegan. All right, perfect. And I want to ask these questions, and I want you to like answer them in your head. But I want you to answer like questions like, what is your age? What's your gender identity? What's your race? Your ethnicity, your religious or spiritual affiliation, your national origin, your first language, your sexual orientation, your socioeconomic class, or even your disability or ability. And every one of those that you answer defines who you are, right? Maybe your age is just like what you feel like you define yourself as, or maybe it's your race. But if you Tegan, I might actually just present this myself. Tegan, do you mind if I could share the screen so I could just like move it if you want? That'd be perfect. So I can just do it from right here. So I don't have to be like Tegan. Perfect. Let me move this. Oh no. Sorry for this malfunction, folks. All right. So for us to proactively address inclusivity as a whole and to make sure that we are being an inclusive volunteer group, we have to understand intersectionality and how all of these individual things can be placed together to mean one whole person, you know? And the person who defined intersectionality is Dr. Krembley Crenshaw. And this is a TED Talk video that I would want for you guys to go in and look at later, because it is quite a bit of a video, but it very much so delves into the understanding of intersectionality and the necessity of understanding it. Give me a second. So when we only focus on one part of that diversity, we often suffocate the intersectionality of the entire group. So for instance, if somebody were to look at me and say, oh, that's a young man, he is very good in the party and he'll do very good things like help us out with Zoom. There could be a lack of, I guess, potential in other factors, such as like maybe organizing or like developing a strategical plan for like neighborhood clusters. So we have to, as an organization, we have to be very inclusive and we have to have an open mind and make sure that we're not looking for just one like mixed person or one person of Latino origin to say like, okay, we're doing it. We are now diverse. Like we must have an intersectionality value added to that. And with that, we get into asking the tough questions like, we need to continue to learn but not like, we don't need to ask questions in a general format that would be disrespectful, or like in a negative format. We just need to be able to uplift the people who we are engaging with. So do you feel like your privilege may be mitigating somebody else's strategies or ideals, or do you feel like there is something that you could do to help promote intersectionality, but the lack of voice is not helping with that? You know what I mean? Do you feel like other people are welcome or comfortable in your presence? And that's really like the main thing about being inclusive, is just having people feel comfortable around you. Even for the events, like, is it accessible to everybody? What do we do to promote accessibility? Do we reach out to anybody and make sure that like everything is going well and that everything is like, that people can make it and that any disability or ability that they may have is compensated for? And are we creating safe spaces for people to feel comfortable and to be able to say what they want to say? And are we as an organization building healthy coalitions? And do we have truly like diverse membership and leadership across the state? And as a separate point added to that, do we have an actual outreach that connects with people? Do we as a group connect with the individuals that we are trying to get to vote blue or even to volunteer on our behalf? And who is at our table, who isn't at our table, and why is that the case? All of these questions that we need to ask ourselves to make sure that we are promoting a diverse area and a diverse, inclusive zone for our volunteers. Hold on, I'm gonna move this. I don't know why it's not saying that I'm presenting, but I will. Perfect. All right, so why do we start this now? Why are we building this now? And the reason is that there is no, and I'd like to reference the second point first before I go to the first point. There is no magic formula. We have to work with what we have. Just like as we saw in the crosstabs earlier, not every precinct or county has the same strategy that they're going to need to use. So making sure that your lists are like tailored to your methods of how you're going to do things, and making sure that your organizing is effective and that you're being able to motivate your volunteers and so that they are able to get involved is going to be the first steps to building a long-term sustainable volunteer organization that can continue to promote democratic values and be able to connect with people and get out the vote or base build and be able to get more democratic people who don't vote often to vote often. All of these strategies that each individual precinct will have will come into their own part. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So the 5 tools for building a nice little base, are in each of these topics. So we have training, you have grassroots funding, you have outreach, you have grassroots organizing, and then you have your communications and digital. And for the training specifically, you will need to like assess your needs as an organization. So you really, like I said earlier, you're gonna have to go back to your precinct and figure out like, what is our main goals, right? So like for a precinct with like 100% turnout for your Democratic voters, you're not going to sit there and say, well, we need to make sure that everybody who's a Democrat goes out to vote because they're already voting. But if you have like people who may be democratically aligned and you want to build up a base so that you have a stronger Democratic base of voting, that's where you come into play with that. And then in general, you also need to take in needs of like what's going on with your organization and like with your volunteer group. So like, and that's a part of also the diversity aspect, is that you have to understand and be comfortable with understanding what's going on in your volunteers' lives and like how those different things will play out in the long term. And you're going to want to create a strategic plan for offering those trainings in that format so that everything works out well and that you have like a format for those who want to promote a diverse and inclusive environment, but also get things done. And with that, you can also work with a local party to just get materials and ideas, just so if you are struggling, then you can like ask people for help so that we are all working together, because this is a coalition front. Like we have to be working together. But do note that all this may be a lot, but you have to start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. That is essentially those three, I guess, phrases are what's going to make sure that you understand how to build and, I guess, be effective in volunteering and organizing in the long term. And please remember, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is not a very fast-paced thing, because we have goals. We have the 2022 elections. We have the 2024 elections, and we want to be able to build a base for that. But you have to be realistic about what your levels of engagement are. You have to be flexible, because like we said, everyone's game plan and strategy is different. So you have to make sure that you're working within those lines, but be effective and be intentional about developing those leaders and those volunteers to make sure that everything is as effective as humanely possible. And to build a positive, give me a second. Building that positive environment will contribute mostly from like the individual volunteers. So they're going to come to you. They're going to come to you because they have like an issue that they want, or they have a candidate that they're involved with, or like they feel like they want to support, or they're just very invested in the Democratic Party. And they say, I want to be a Democrat. I am very Democratic. But they will stay for you. They will stay for your volunteering and your, I guess, energy, you know? So to keep volunteers coming back and to keep that consistency going, you're going to have to invest time and energy into building a positive environment for everyone to volunteer effectively. And that being said, volunteers who have a good experience are much more likely to come back and eventually be able to do more, as it should be, because if you had a bad experience volunteering, would you want to come back and do that again? Maybe if you were a Democrat, I could understand, because, you know, I will always keep coming back, but it is encouraged to make sure that everybody has a good experience so that we keep on progressing and building upon what we already have started. And with that goes into the relational organizing, because once you have an inclusive and a very diverse volunteer group, then you can use those same strategies to promote relational organizing, which is basically empowering community members that you know to reach out to their own networks and reach a broader base of people, which is essentially just saying you get in contact with people that you know and you promote volunteering in that and with those people. So traditional organizing and relational organizing have two like veins of thought. So for traditional organizing, you would walk up to a stranger's door, you would knock, and you say like, okay, do you want to go vote? Like traditional organizing, like for get out the vote, for any type of like federal election, like the president or anything like that, traditional organizing is very much utilized because we're just knocking on doors. We're trying to get people who already are Democrats to vote. So it's very like quick paced and everyone is getting on the ball. But for relational organizing, you're more walking up to like a best friend or like your neighbor, and you knock on it and you have like a little conversation about like how you, or like you connect with them, and then you utilize that connection to promote or to volunteer, to promote volunteering. And with the difference between traditional and relational, which one is going to get more folks to come to like an event, right? Like if you wanted to get 100 people to come to an event and you wanted 100 good Democratic volunteers, would you rather knock on like 1,000 people's doors and just slide them a note and say like, hey, here, come to this? Or would you rather like walk up to like a steady 200 and have a conversation with them and say, this is what we're geared for, this is what we want to do, and this is how I think you could help us volunteer? or this is what, or like, do you want to get registered to vote? And this is how I think we should progress further than that. So it's really just like a method that you start building, and then it builds up and you keep on going. But that's not to say that traditional organizing is not important, but it involves asking folks that we don't know to dedicate some time and effort that we don't really know if they have time for, or if they're very passionate about. But relational organizing puts that at the forefront so that we know that like those people who are working and volunteering with us are passionate, not only just because of their, I guess, their opinions or ideals, but because of the connection that they have with the volunteer group and with the party as a whole. And that will yield amazing results that can be utilized in the long term. Examples of like potential relational organizing that you can try within your precincts are friend banks. So it's like, instead of calling strangers or people within like your precinct or district, you can call your own list of friends. Like you'll have a friend phone bank where you'll devise like a list of like 5 to 10 people, and you call them and you ask them, hey, have you gotten registered? Hey, are you ready to knock on doors and canvass? I'm very excited. And there's also like messaging on social media. Social media is a big tool for this because you can get a lot of people that you know and be able to reach out and connect with them, and that will be able to grow your base. And then we have, hold on, excuse me a second. We have a little video of like what it looks like to like relational organized online. This is just like a little Facebook Messenger thing. So we'll play this little 45-second video. So with that little quick setup, they have now gotten somebody to be registered to vote online. And now you have yet another person who feels like the party is reaching out to them directly, but it's just you, it's just your friend. And with that, you may have another volunteer who's ready to work by your side. Now, I want you guys to try this out. Like, I really do. I want you guys to think about 3 friends, 3 coworkers, maybe a couple of family members, and or neighbors that you think you would want to reach out to and like to ask them like, are you registered to vote? Have you gotten your vaccine? Anything like that. Or do you want to volunteer? And just open up your text messages or your Facebook Messenger or whatever you chat with your community. And I want you guys to like get a message ready, like get a legitimate like, hey guys, my name is, for instance, Samoy Stout, and I work with the North Carolina Democratic Party. But I was wondering, like, are you registered? Like, do you have voter registration for the next election? And from then on out, you communicate with them and get them ready. And that's how you would go with relational organizing, at least for that little example. But Vote Builder being a start is like a very essential part to the data formation, but we cannot forget or lack the human aspect of this and the emotional and relational aspect of our organization, because that's what binds us together. So make sure that like for all the data that we collect and all the turfs that we cut and all of the people that we are outreaching on Vote Builder, that you have people who are comfortable with who they are in the environments that we are working with, making sure that we are all volunteering for, you know, like the same things and making sure that we all want to help each other out. And with that, that'll go to the neighborhood cluster model, which I think Tegan will be taking over from there. So I'm going to stop my share. If anyone has any questions for that, you can throw me a little hand raise or ask me individually in the chat, and I will definitely get back to you on that. But from here, I think I'll ask Tegan to screen share, and then we can get on to neighborhood cluster models.
Yeah, And if you have questions for Smoy about that stuff, you can also ask them at the end. We'll have a good question session there when we can just open it up and have a good conversation together, because that's what this whole weekend is about, is talking to and meeting Democrats from across the state. So with that, moving from relational organizing, it leads right into our neighborhood cluster model, which is something that we are kind of starting now. It's a way of just kind of thinking about it and chunking up relational organizing so that it doesn't seem so daunting. So I just want to start with this number, 514. Can any of you, if you want to unmute, put it in the chat, what do you think this 514 means? Is it 514 sandwiches that I want to eat in the next month? Like what does this number mean? I know Carol all right. It looks like someone actually got it in the chat. So yes, 514 days until the midterm election. Until next election in 2022, there are 514 days. That seems like a lot of days. 2022 feels so far away, especially because it just feels like 2021 started, but it really isn't. Especially in terms of organizing, because every single day, and we all have some really big goals. I think every county first vice, every precinct chair, they want to see all their precincts organized, 100% organized and active, not just sitting at 5-person minimum, but actually doing things and meeting more than once a year and getting out and growing in the community. And if we want to get 50% plus one in each election, that's a huge goal. It's a great goal. But how do we start now to chip away at that? Because we have to do something every day to get that goal. We're not just going to wake up and all of a sudden it's going to happen. We have to work on that right now. So we're going to pretend we're going to hop in a time machine, and all of a sudden it is October 12th, 2022, and the election is in 27 days. Just sit there, feel that 27 days, that's daunting, that's stressful. But where do we want to be in that 27 days? How far do we want to have come? And what do we already want to have done so that we can just focus on pushing out the vote in that last 27 days and really making sure we get that 50% plus one in the election? So some of these goals, we're going to register new voters. We're going to persuade those voters that we talked about in the middle of that square graphic at the beginning. We need to persuade them over to the right side of things and get them to vote for Democratic candidates. And we're going to recruit volunteers. Those are great goals, but how do we measure them? How do we know if we actually achieved them? Because if we're going to register new voters, how are we doing that? How many are we doing it? So we're going to think about how to make those goals specific. We're going to actually knock 1,500 doors, and we're going to make this number of calls, and we're going to recruit 25 volunteer leaders. Those numbers, those are daunting numbers. Can you do this by yourself? I mean, maybe there's a superhero in here. I think some of you are really great, but I don't know. Maybe 1,800 dials a week is a little bit much, even for a superhero that's in here, a great volunteer leader. I don't know. I couldn't do it. So this brings us to our neighborhood team model, because you cannot do it by yourself. You can be at this center, and then you need teams of volunteers. You need volunteer leaders, and then you need other volunteers, people getting out into their community. Because if we're all doing this, instead of just being able to do what these 100 field organizers could do in the middle, if everyone is doing things and everybody is knocking doors, then you can knock. So this number, there's some math that went into it, but all of this team could knock 250,000 doors, as opposed to probably around the 20,000 doors that the 100 field organizers could knock in the beginning. Basically, all of this is to say that you need a team. You as a precinct chair, you as a county first vice, and your county executive committee, you guys cannot do it. You can't do it by yourself. It's also not fun to do by yourself. It's so much more fun when you have a whole team doing it, when you have a whole team leading a phone, making knocking doors, because you can then share your stories. You can talk about the hard conversations that you had, but you can also talk about your successes and achieve so much more. What we're asking, we said earlier that you need to make friends. Basically, it's taking that friends and it's making that a specific goal. we're asking and we're saying that if every grassroots organizer recruits and has a network of 25 volunteers, then we as a state would have a coalition of 50,000 volunteers ready to just hit the ground running and elect candidates up and down the ticket in 2022. That's 50,000 people that are just available at the drop of a hat and who are ready to fight the good fight and get Democrats elected. And that's just from each of us getting and like making friends, making 25 friends and getting 25 people excited about the Democratic Party and about our values, and getting to know other people, because maybe one of those 25, they want to know their own 25, and it just grows exponentially, sorry about that, from there. So it's great. And it just is, we just is bite-sized chunks now. We can start doing this now. We can say, great, 25, I want to have 5 volunteers, 5 close friends who I can count on by the end of the month. That's what I want to do now. And so just chunking that up for yourself, knowing what is doable, making it realistic. I'm not going to say you need 25 volunteers in 24 hours, because that's not realistic. And it's daunting at that point and overwhelming. We're not trying to do that. But the 514 days, sorry, I just took 2 days away from there. 514 days, we have time to do this, and so much more. So we at the NCDP are rolling out this program of the neighborhood cluster model. There is a whole breakout session on this that Julia is leading this afternoon that goes into so much more detail about it. It's going to be great. I'm going to be there. Samora is going to be there. So if you want to come hang out with us again, it's going to be fun. But basically, we're rolling out this program. There are already organizing fellows like Samoy and I in every congressional district across the state. So there are 13 of us. And then we are going to have the option for people to self-select into this program. Do you want to be a Building Blue ambassador? So that's kind of at the top of the program. You're at the center of that graphic that I showed a couple of slides ago. You are that field organizer who is maintaining a network of other people who are maintaining a network of volunteers. But you also yourself are volunteering. So then you have your district leader. That will be in each legislative district. There will be a leader doing that. They will probably work pretty closely with us organizing fellows, but that person will be leading the charge in that congressional district. Then you have town captains. Each town will have one. So it's just breaking it down further and further. And then the town captains will be in charge of the grassroots organizers. They are the people that are going to adopt those 25 people at the bottom right there. Grassroots organizers, they are the heart and soul of this whole project, and they are the reason that this party runs the way it does and why it will run in the future. So we're going to have an option for people to self-select into this and say, opt in and say they want to be an organizer, a town captain, a district leader, or even an ambassador. And there will be significant, like there will be a bunch of training for each of these roles, more descriptions will be talked about later. It's all very exciting. It's a new thing that we're doing. And Julia will talk more about it this afternoon. And then there will be tons of emails sent about it, tons of trainings offered in the near future. And with that, I'm gonna open it up and just say, we can just close it out and have a good conversation with each other. We could talk about that neighborhood cluster model. We can talk about relational organizing. Anyone have any questions? I think Carol had a question that didn't get answered earlier, if she wants to ask that question now. And we can just have a conversation about this. It's a lot of information that we just threw at you. I recognize that. And it's a good, exciting way to start your Saturday morning. But we can open it up and just have a good conversation now. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, raise your hand, do whatever.
Okay, my question was for Emily. JJ Tolino had created a Vote Builder account for me, but I wasn't able to access it. And they said, please activate your account within 48 hours or it would be deleted. So how do I know if I'm active on Vote Builder?
So I can go and check that out for you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Just for everybody else, if y'all need a builder account, or if you're not sure about how to get logged in, you can always go to the ncdp.org/support portal, and we'll get you helped out there. But Carol, I'll take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
One thing I just saw in the chat, yes, this slide deck will be posted. We were actually making edits at about 8 o'clock this morning to it. So we will post the whole slide deck after this, and it will be on Socio so that you can download it, you can save it to your computer and print it out and see all of that. So that will be that. And then this session was also recorded. So if you want to see it again, and neighborhood clusters is the other question that was asked. It will be taught this afternoon. I think it's at 2:30, but please check your Socio and don't quote me on that. So we can hop over. I think Michelle has a question.
Yes, so this might be very strange, but so to build this network of 25 volunteers that are kind of my people that I can sort of call on to do whatever we need to do to spread the word and get out the vote and such. I certainly have that network here in this precinct. I also just moved back here about a little less than a year ago from a heavily Democratic area in Michigan. And I have a lot of friends who would help me do whatever they could help me do from a distance as well. Can those folks also be part of my 25? How do we feel, like, what are the rules about, you know, because when we organized, obviously the people who organize have to be in your precinct, but I know a lot of people who are all over the state that I grew up with. I know a lot of people in other states, and just curious as to what are the rules and are there any surrounding what people can help us do?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to knock a bunch of doors, then your friends in Michigan might not be helpful. But if you're trying to make a bunch of phone calls, then they absolutely can do that from a distance. So I think at this point, there are not many defined rules. It's really up to you. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to knock a bunch of doors, or do people really need to be there? Or are people who maybe aren't on the ground right there, but really understand what your local issues are? So that's the other thing, is like, if someone is from another place, making sure that they really understand what is going on the ground in your precinct in North Carolina, and understand those issues, so that they're not coming at it from a position that's totally like off the wall and stuff like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that Nancy just raised her hand, I believe. Yeah, you're muted.
Hi.
Hi.
We have organized our precinct into turfs, and about half of them are organized with a neighborhood coordinator, and each one has about 20 homes. I meet with the neighborhood coordinators every month to keep everybody kind of excited about it, and then I send out a little newsletter every month to them, and they send it out to their people. So we have a really high percentage of voting, but we could always be better. So that's what we're doing right now. So I'm excited to see that the state party's changing. So happy.
Yeah, so I think what Nancy said is bringing up a good question that I've seen a couple of people are putting in the chat as well. Some counties and some areas really have this kind of model already implemented. The neighborhood cluster model is more about kind of not standardizing it, but presenting something that can be implemented across the state, because some areas are doing great. And I think that Nancy's is a great example of this. Is there is already a network of people who are working together as a team, working with each other and splitting up all of the responsibilities, but some areas aren't doing that yet. And some don't have the resources, or don't have or just are more confused about how to implement it. So that's the neighborhood cluster model. It really fits right in to a lot of the infrastructure that's already in place within county parties across the state. So some counties, it's really not going to be, if they opt into this, it's not going to be much different than what they're doing now. It's just more official and like more of a strategy that's going on across the state. Some counties, there's going to be more of a learning curve, and there's going to be more changes that have to be implemented. But it goes right along with the county party structure, and it's not to step on the toes and it's not replacing any of that. It's just in addition to, we're just trying to make sure that we're all having conversations and that we're not just sitting, having a precinct meeting once a year, signing our five names on a piece of paper and calling it good enough. So that we're actually like on the ground, having conversations, getting to know people, and also working more within our Democratic family, because it extends that network out more as well. I think that, is it Shauna who has a question also up there?
Yes, ma'am. How are you this morning? Thank
I'm good.
you.
How are you?
Good. So I'm precinct chair. My husband is our county chair. We have a very small county, Warren County. And thank God our precincts are organized, have been organized for years. Last year we had 77% turnout, which we're really proud of. We had extremely high African-American turnout. My question is, how do we improve our precinct meetings and make them better? I actually feel guilty sometimes that we call these people together and we say, okay, here's this agenda that we get from the state. We go through the agenda, we ask them for money, and we go home. And I feel like, can't we give them something else? So my question is, I'd love ideas from other people around the state. Like, what do you do to make your precinct meetings more interesting or fun or whatever?
Absolutely. That's a great question. If anyone around in here wants to hop in on that question, please feel free. I think I've heard some chairs that I think I see in this meeting doing some fun things, but I'd love to hear from any of you if you have any recommendations and stuff for Shauna.
I will say I'm a new precinct officer, and one of the things that I wanted to join is for that exact reason, is how to increase engagement, how to make it more fun. One of the things that I think we're going to start doing is having like outdoor meetings and invite children, so that like maybe have them at a clubhouse where there's a park, and maybe have like an opening activity with the kids that's related to the Democratic Party. And that way you can get younger people there who may not have childcare. You could do them in different areas in your precinct to try to, get more diversity. I'm even thinking about putting up signs, kind of like Elizabeth Warren did at her headquarters, of like goals, like almost like advertising for other families who may be at the park. So that's something that I'm giving a lot of thought to as well. So that's one idea.
Thank you. And my husband finally has agreed we want to start having, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be precinct by precinct or area by area, but you're just having get-togethers around the county so that people can start to get to know each other, because I think that's important. Fortunately, as a small county, most of us do know each other, but the truth is everybody's moving in this society so much, you don't know every neighbor. We always can increase participation, absolutely. So I like that idea though, because getting to the young people, we started a Young Dems organization, and with the way kids change their phones these days, we've lost touch with everybody. We can't find them anymore. So, but I like that idea. Thanks.
There are also some great ideas that are popping into the chat right now. I think Mitzi is saying that they're all going to a baseball game together. So just kind of finding things to do that aren't necessarily official like precinct meetings, but also just like getting to know them. It's just the whole making friends again. And trying to get to know people outside of the party, because that like who they are outside the party is why they show up. That's why they want to be part of the precinct and why they are involved in the county party, the precinct, whatever it is. And that is so important. And it's not just about saying like meeting them as part of that official meeting, but get to know them outside of that. And I think going to a baseball game, going to a park, inviting kids there, like that type of a thing, it extends it out beyond that and makes it less formal also. So people may be more willing to be more relaxed and share more and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna hop over. I think Tyler has a question.
Yes, ma'am. So, so here in Harnett County, we have 4 unorganized precincts. So, I'm doing the whole, we're having an interest meeting. I'm calling like the 50 most active or high score according to Vote Builder. But like the issue I run into, and I feel, I guess I feel a little strange by doing this. So I'm making all these cold calls and I'm asking people to get involved. And then the very next thing, you know, we turn around and ask them for money for our sustaining funds. And I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, okay, well, that's, you know, that's why they're calling, they need money. So, but I guess the question is how are the sustaining funds paid? Are we as first vice chairs, are we really supposed to ask these precinct officers that are going to be on the ground to pay the sustaining funds also? Or does that come out of the county's fund? Or, yeah, I guess that's the question. Does it come out of the county's fund, or do the precincts actually raise these sustaining funds most of the time?
Is a good question. Emily, do you want to take that one potentially?
I would love to take that one if I was 100% sure of the answer, which I am not. So
I can help.
Fantastic.
I've been doing this long enough. The sustaining funds come from your precinct meetings. So when you gather our annual precinct meetings, it varies. It's like anywhere between February and March. But when you have your precinct meetings, you ask the people gathered at the precinct meeting if they would contribute to the sustaining fund. You will also, before your meeting, get a whole packet from the state, and it's got a whole explanation of what the sustaining funds are for. Things like supporting Vote Builder and other activities that the North Carolina Democratic Party runs. So that's what the sustaining funds are for. And then we as a county are then responsible to turn over the money that we get from our sustaining funds to the state. And they'll give you a bill and say, this is what your county owes. And I'm pretty sure I think it's partially by turnout, and I think it's partially by population as to how much each county is responsible for. And then the North Carolina Democratic Party also will then give you a percentage of your sustaining funds back to you for use in your countywide party. So the sustaining funds come directly from the people gathered at their precinct meetings.
Yeah, I was afraid so. I felt kind of bad asking the same people that I'm asking them to step up and be a precinct chair and lead the precinct. You know, I felt bad asking the same people to contribute for money. And I didn't know if sometimes the counties took care of it, but ours, most of our 13 precincts aren't that much anyway, but I'm going to have to start asking for that money now. We actually have the first interest meeting this afternoon for one of those unorganized precincts. So I was about to have to ask them for money. So I was just wanting to make sure before I did that.
And people donate like $1. Some people give $20. I mean, it's, totally up to what you can give.
Can I make a suggestion about that sustainment fund collection? I did it differently this year because it's always been the core same people coming to the precinct organizing meeting. And this is like my third year as a chair. So I was always hitting up the same people. So I have email of some of the people, like 30, 40, 50 people in my precinct. So what I did this year was send out an email to that core group, explaining them what the sustainment fund is and why we need to pay, based on what the previous chair said. And I ended up collecting $200 and some odd because I gave them the PayPal, our Union County, links for them to make payments. And I was blown away because I ended up collecting over $200 and some odd and don't even know who sent the money in. They just put precinct 19, right? And so that's a suggestion. Maybe if you've got emails of people that you send out notices to, just let them know what you're doing, because some people would rather pay, but they're not able to come to meetings. So they feel like they're helping you by paying. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
The other part about the sustaining fund, as I understand it, is in addition to Vote Builder and the Socio app subscription, for example, is it pays for the state party staff, including, I think, our wonderful fellows
Yeah, I don't know. I think it all gets put into the pot of party money. So that is what's paying us fellows. So
Yeah, because I don't think people really concerned about what it pays for. It's just getting the money from the same core people, because I don't know what happened this year, but my precinct sustainment fund went up about $60 or more. And I was feeling some kind of way to ask the same people to give more. So I just sent out an email, let them know what it was. And we got the money. I mean, just make it easy. This is a digital world. Put them the link to your county headquarters and have them just encourage them to pay. That's an easy way.
Alrighty, I think Alan has his hand raised.
Hey, Tegan, thanks for taking my question. So I was curious, does NCDP maintain a best practices document so that we can capture all the great ideas that people have and see what works and then share that knowledge throughout the state?
Yes, I think that there is a new, I don't know what to call it, something that's new that's being launched. It's basically like an NCDP living document library that is new. It's being started. I don't know all the details about it. The first thing I heard about it was last night. So, but I think it is getting started because that is one of the issues is some people are really on it and have figured out really good things that worked, like Joyce's sustaining fund notes, and sharing it, that's what's going to make the whole party better. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel every single time and trying to discover the same things that someone else discovered 2 years ago that worked. So I think we are starting that. I think more details about that will be shared. I'm sorry, I don't know more about it, but yes, sort of. Yes, in the future, basically. And someone had a question in the chat, and then we'll have to Robin's question about how to opt into this neighborhood cluster model. I believe more information will be shared soon about it. It is brand new in terms of at the state level. So at this point, the question was, should you reach out to your district fellow? Most of the district's fellow probably won't know what to do at this point, but could pass that message along to Julia. So that it is an option to do that. You can also reach out to Julia, and then I'm sure that there will be a sign-up form or something that will be circulated around in the next couple of weeks or so. I know that's kind of the neighborhood cluster model is next on the table after this weekend. So that is coming up shortly, and you will have more information about that soon. And then Robin, question.
Good morning, everybody. I am new as a precinct chair, but I've been active for a while as the president of the local Democratic Women. And as a precinct participant, previously, I was in one of those precincts where we got the 5 people together one time, and that was it. And as a precinct chair, I've tried proactively to reach out and pull more people in. And at our precinct organization meeting, we had 13 people, which was far more than we'd ever had since I've been participating. So I was very proud of that. But we're going to try to continue to have Zoom meetings at least once in a while, in addition to some face-to-face, just to try to keep pulling those people in who don't get out as much. We do have a lot of elderly people in our precinct, and some of them are not driving, or they just can't get out on a Saturday morning or whatever. So Zoom meetings are going to help them to stay active. So I'm excited about that. And we also have a Facebook group, which I saw some people in the chat saying they were doing that as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that it's easy to say Zoom is horrible and we don't like Zoom. And I think all of us are tired of Zoom. I know I am very tired of Zoom, but there are some things that Zoom does it is really great for. Like this whole weekend, we are all able to be across the state of North Carolina and out of state. There are participants from across the country, and we're all able to be here together talking and having these conversations and learning. So, and sharing all of our ideas from across the state, and we don't all have to commute to one central location. So I think that that's a great point, that yes, moving back to in-person stuff, especially more on a local level, it is exciting. I'm really looking forward to it myself, but having Zoom every once in a while is an option, because it is so easy. You can just kind of hop right in or join, like you don't have to drive somewhere. There's no commute time. There's none of that. But at the same time, it's technology, and that comes with its own set of issues and such. So there was a question on what is the role of district fellows. There are a couple of questions I got in that. And what should you ask your district fellow for? It's a great question. Samoy and I are two of the district fellows. There are 13 of us right now. And we are kind of working within the state party, but also with our districts to figure out, we were helping a lot with district conventions, county conventions, and then we've been really focused on this weekend. So we're kind of a go-between for the state party and district. Sometimes we're also a great resource if you have a question, even if we don't know the answers to it. A lot of times we can pass it right along to Julia because we're in constant contact with her and the rest of the party. So that is a great use for us. I'm not entirely sure what we're pivoting to after this weekend. I think neighborhood cluster is a big thing we're going to be working on, but yeah, so that was a good question. I don't know if Samoy has anything he wants to add to that.
No, you pretty much hit it on the nail. We really are just like a liaison front between the NCDP and the state DP and like our congressional districts and like everybody organizing. And we're organizing like fellows. So that's like our go-to. So as per like individually what precinct chair, what first vice chair would need, I think it's really just on a case-by-case basis. Like we can really, if like you ask and you're like, we need help with Vote Builder, like we can direct you in that area or in that agenda. But it's really just like I think it's really just asking whatever you need and seeing if we can help you with it is like the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and if you have a question, like feel free to ask it. And if we don't know the answer, we can always pass it on to somebody else. It is a great first point of contact, especially because we do know the answers to a lot of things, but we also know the people that may know better answers to things. So that is helpful as well. Already at this point, oh, someone asked, should I ask Julia? I missed the first question that you asked, Lisa, if you want to type it again. Sorry, the chat is overflowing a little bit. So at this point, we are a little bit over time. So if you want to hop off, that's totally fine. If you have more questions, if you want to keep talking, we can keep talking for a little bit. We do have to get ready for our next sessions, but thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being such a great group. There were some great tips and tricks that were shared. There's some good questions asked. Yes, now I see your question, Lisa. Thank you. So this training is over, but the slide deck will be posted. So the question is, her first vice didn't register in time, and so wasn't able to come. So just so that you all know what that is. But the training is recorded. It will be posted on Socio. It does take a bit of time to like upload it to the cloud and then get it on YouTube and send it back over. So that's one of our next tasks as well in the coming week. And then the resources, the slides will be posted as well. So if you want to share that, if you want to pass that along, that is totally fine.
But for this afternoon session?
Oh, for this afternoon.
Yeah.
Did they register, like they just logged into Socio this morning, or?
Yeah, they just tried to register this morning, and then he saw he was supposed to do it by the 11th. So I didn't know if it was too late for him to.
I would reach out to Wida Watson. Do you have her contact information?
Yeah, I have her, but email.
If you have them reach out to Wida, she can help them and get them registered like right now. She's on tech all day helping with all of that.
Thanks, Tegan.
Yeah, of course.
Excuse me, Tegan, I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Ellie in New Hanover County. I can't remember when the next session is.
Perfect. Let me pull it up. Let me see. I believe that there is a bit of a break right now to kind of let your brain digest all of the information that we just threw at you, because we knew that it was a lot. It's a lot for a Saturday morning. But Then we have so 1 o'clock is the next event. It's our lunchtime event. It'll be fun. It's called How to Democrat in the World of Trump. So it's going to be a conversation with Dr. Bobby Richardson, our state party chair. Representative Greg Meyer will be there. They're talking about just kind of what are we doing? What's next for the party? How to be a good Democrat right now and keep up the good fight in a daunting world that we live in. And then Julia will be there, and I think that there's a mixologist coming at lunch. So just for some comic relief during that, it's going to be a little bit chaotic. It'll be good. I'm very excited. I think almost everyone is going to be there because we're all coming back from our separate tracks this morning. So the energy will probably be super high. It'll be fun, but it'll also be some good conversations and
Thank you. It sounds great. Unfortunately, I'm double booked. Is it going to be recorded?
Yes, everything this weekend is going to be recorded, and the recordings will be shared. Just not immediately because it just takes a little bit of time, especially because there's so many sessions being offered and recorded.
Right. And will it be through emails, or do we have to get back on Socio?
I believe that some of the recordings are going to be posted on the NCDP website, the training resources there.
Okay.
I will check with Julia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome
Thank
job.
You. Thanks. All right, if anybody else has any more questions, you can do that. Or at this point, I think that it's
I have a question.
Oh yeah, of course.
My name is Tony Ionata. I'm a new precinct chair in Shingle Tree 2 in Carolina Shores. I'm going to have a meeting this Thursday, and I want to present strategic goals. I'm new at this. Can I use the slides that you have presented? I would like to have something other than just my voice. I can motivate people. I taught for 38 years up in New York, so that's not a problem. But I'd like to have use a different platform. Another question: are you fellows available for in-person talks to individual groups?
Yeah, so 2 very good questions. You can absolutely use the slides for that. They will be up. There are some updates done this morning, so they will be updated and posted. I will do that as soon as we get off of here. I'll update them, and you can use them. And then in terms of fellows, I think it's very fellow dependent at this point. I think some of us we're kind of across the state right now. I go to school in Massachusetts, so I actually just hopped back up to school for the summer. So okay. I am not.
Good for you.
But some other people are truly still on the ground and doing things. And like, I'm still doing things, just not on the ground anymore. But yes, and also like Zoom meetings with fellows is definitely on the table. If you just reach out to us individually, I'm sure. I mean, I know I'm definitely fine with that. And I know other fellows that are as well.
Well, I appreciate that. So we could either do it in person or we can do it as a Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Would that be possible?
Yeah.
Well, all right. I wish you success in school, and I've appreciated your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here, Johnny.
All right.
And then I think Wendy has one last question before we wrap it up and call it a morning. You're muted, Wendy. Wendy, we can't hear you. You are still muted.
Okay, I'm trying to get it out so quickly. I was trying to respond to Anthony and I think he left. I was going to say I have developed a pretty simple, streamlined precinct strategic plan template that a lot of it I took from previous trainings that you guys have done. In fact, I steal your your slides a lot to try to do training with my group, and I was going to share that with him So I
Yeah.
gave him the phone number to call me later, but I think he jumped off already, so.
That's one great thing about the Socio app. Also, you can find him on there and send him a message.
Okay.
And you can send a message to like all the attendees who were here this morning and stuff like that. So
Okay,
if
great.
you poke around the app, you will be able to track him down again, or at least find his email so you can email him.
I'll try to find my way. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. One last question from Abigail, and then we'll call it a morning.
Hey, I just wanted to ask, and you may not know this, how long will this Socio login and documents be available after the training has ended?
Believe I have heard a year,
Okay,
but
great.
yes, that's what I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Also, the documents, if you download them and save them to your computer, then you can have them forever.
Right, I was just wondering how long I had to download them for.
Yeah, no, I got it. So you'll
Yeah.
have a good amount of time. I know that the Democratic Women used Socio in the fall for their conference, and all their stuff is still up. So
Okay, great, thank you.
Taken, on the link that was provided just above, what's the last letter after the MZ? Is it capital O, a zero? Or
let me find
or what?
which link are you?
It's just almost at the end of the chat.
Is it the Socio link?
Yeah,
That's a Q.
thank you. It didn't work.
Oh, that link didn't work.
Uh-uh.
Interesting. Let me see.
It says we're having trouble finding that site. Unless I typed it wrong, but I don't think I did.
Are you on your computer?
Yeah.
If you just click that link from the chat, it should open up for you.
I'm trying.
That's all good.
I always have to do it the hard way, so sorry.
No, it's totally fine.
It's cooking. Yes, it did.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys all so much for being here, asking great questions, having some good conversations, and we will see you at lunch or a breakout session this afternoon. Alrighty. Bye, guys.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.